What's going on, my pretty pandas? It's your huggable hipster here, and welcome back to today's podcast. Podcast. Okay, now I'm just being annoying, and I've had way too much coffee. Actually, I've only had not even one cup. I don't understand this. This is great. And the heater went on too, so as soon as I record everything, just all the noises happen. Welcome back to today's podcast, where we are going to be talking about a melange. I like using that word lately, melange. It sounds really good coming off the tongue. I told you, I'm going to be nuts today. We have a melange of topics that we're going to be discussing. So we're going to be talking about a lot of topics today, to say the least. I don't know how long necessarily I want to keep these podcasts to. I feel like so many YouTubers make podcasts that are so incredibly long that it's just it gets ridiculous, and I'm not just there yawning by the end of it, unless it's another gamer, or if it's what's her face, I'm forgetting the name. Jenna Marbles. That's it. That's her name. I love her podcasts. The ones that her and her boyfriend do. Absolutely wonderful. Or is it her fiance? I don't know. Don't come at me. But the first topic that we're actually going to be talking about today, actually all topics that we're discussing today, are from Patreon. So thank you to Peter Turner and Andrew for sending in these topics. I really appreciate it. And it's always much appreciated when not just these guys who have been loyal followers since pretty much the beginning, but when anybody recommends topics. So if you guys want to be a part of the podcast and you want to recommend topics and everything, you can do so by clicking on the link that says my Patreon down in the description below, and the Casual Nerd podcast tier will be there. It's only $3 a month, so it's not too incredibly breaking the bank. First topic that we're going to dive into is one from Andrew, so thank you again, Andrew. And he suggested, what about talking about the latest trends in games, or what you would like to see more of in games, not just types of games, but different modes and features, or something you think that they would be missing out that would make them better. So I really think that that's a really interesting topic to discuss, and my phone just decided to yell at me. I don't know, there's just a lot of things that I wish were in games. Better stories, better and more diverse stories, actually, to be very specific. I really like the fact that Resident Evil, to go with that example, kept their original storyline, because I know a lot of the time when companies try to redo and revamp horror games and everything, they don't really keep the same story, and it becomes very dragged out and very just tiresome to go through, honestly. And I feel like that's what they did a little bit, not entirely, but a little bit with Outlast 2. So for those of you who played that game, you'll understand what I'm talking about. They tried to revamp it, and they tried to go in a somewhat different direction, but like I've said in previous podcasts and previous T-Talks and everything, if you haven't read the comics, the second game will not make sense to you whatsoever. It's just it's terrible how they made it so niche specific that you had to read the comics to get any concept or grasp of how the story actually flows, which is disappointing. I mean, it really is. It's like, okay, I want to be able to have this game be applicable to the masses instead of just to this hipster niche audience, which, I mean, I'm down for anything hipster, you know me. But when it comes to something as important as a storyline, I feel like it should be, well written enough. That way everybody who hasn't read the comics or hasn't read outside sources can get it and understand the grasp of where you're going. So better storylines, I would absolutely love that. I would love better camera angles in some of the games, especially in some of the indie games that are coming out. Like, what's going on with the camera angles? Do you guys notice this too? Where it's either this really weird first-person perspective of where you're just, you're experiencing it through the character, obviously, but you get these weird camera angles whenever you're opening doors, and it's like your hand isn't even opening the door. It's just like you have a ghost hand. You guys know what I'm talking about, where like you have the option, you click on the key to open up a door, and then the key itself just opens up the door. You don't actually have a hand there opening the door. It's very specific and it's very nitpicky, but I feel like that's something that would be that would be somewhat applicable to change within horror games, is the perspective in which you're going about things. Because if you want it to be as realistic as possible, you might want to put your hand opening the door. Like you don't just have a ghost opening the door for you. Like, you don't go to your items menu when you're in real life and say, oh, I click on this key and the door just magically opens. Oh, that's genius. No, that doesn't happen in real life. In real life, you have a hand that opens the door. So I would like to see a hand opening the door in a game. Like that would be actually pretty cool. Now, I don't know if this will be as important to mention within this podcast, but I feel as if there should be a mode, and my voice just went up an octave. I feel like there should be a mode within the game itself, since we are going towards VR, more or less. Nowadays, we're going towards more of a VR structure for a game. I feel like there should be more of an in-game option to switch between regular gameplay and VR gameplay, because it's such a specific thing that people who play VR will know better how to express their qualms when it comes to this kind of thing, because there's so much you have to do within the game itself, so much development so much developmental wise that you would need to do in order to make an easy switch between regular play that you would play normally on like an Xbox or a PlayStation, and then switching it over to VR with a Switch. Like that, I feel like that would be something interesting to have, but then again, that's just hopes and dreams of a gamer. Don't have a PlayStation. Probably going to get one in the future, but I honestly would love to play The Last of Us. Like, that looks like an amazing game. I hear the second one is going to be coming out, possibly. Still don't know about that. I don't understand why Naughty Dog keeps pushing back the release. I hear that it's going to be coming out, but we get so many teases and so many tidbits of information that nobody knows when it's going to come out. Now, it might come out this year, it might come out next year, who knows? It's completely up to the developer, up to the team, up to Naughty Dog at this point, and I feel like they just keep pushing it back because they want the hype to continue, and you can only do hype for so long. I hope that answered your question, and I hope that was interesting to discuss on that end by different modes and features and all that kind of stuff. If I think of more modes and features during the podcast, I'll just insert it as like a side note, open parentheses, state of mind. Now, the next few topics that I want to get into are ones from Peter Turner. So thank you so much, Peter Turner, for submitting your topics and ideas to the podcast. It sounds so weird to say podcast now. I sound so professional YouTuber over here saying podcast. So the first topic that he suggested was, when a new game or console is coming out, what is worse, too much hype or no hype at all? And that segued perfectly from the PS5, PlayStation talk that we were just having. I feel like you have to find that middle ground of where there's just the right level of hype, of where you already have a release date set in mind, and then you hype it. And then you're like, oh, this is cool, let's hype it. Let's, get little tidbits out here and there. Maybe do like a black and white montage of the console or something like that. That way it looks all spoopy and eerie and just, full of titillating things that are going to happen. And, you don't do this thing that Naughty Dog is doing where we're going to tease the hell out of the game, but we're just not going to, release it anytime soon. I feel like they're doing the same thing with Ori and the Blind Forest. Side note. But they do a lot of the same thing with the with consoles, especially the PS5. I don't know what is going to happen with the PS5. They said that there was a release date for this year, and then they pushed it back, because I realized that consoles is one of the most difficult things mechanically to create in the time span that you are given. It's like whenever you're making a CD, and you have forever to create that first CD, but once you get noticed and once people want more, you have a time limit, honey. Because the thing is, once people get a taste of what you can do, a taste of that hype, see your CDs, see whatever it is you are creating, you, like I said, you have forever to create your first masterpiece. But when it comes to the second thing, you got a deadline. You have to go like bam, bam, bam. You have to be on it. And I feel like PlayStation really isn't on it right now. Like I said, I love PlayStation. I love the graphic work. I love the game choices that they have are absolutely outstanding. But when it comes to releasing stuff, I mean, they kind of put things on the back burner, which is unfortunate. And that's the thing with Naughty Dog, you know, that's the thing with their PlayStation 5. It's not only up to the developer of the game, it's up to the companies that run them, like PlayStation. It's up to a multitude of different things. So when people are blaming, let's say, Naughty Dog for not releasing the game on time, they have to take into consideration about PlayStation. Do they want that game to go out on time? Do they want a later release date for hype? There's so many things. There's a multitude of things that could go wrong. There's a multitude of things that are even in consideration with a release date for a game or even a console. So I feel like a nice middle ground would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath. So yeah, to answer that first question, that first topic, just there needs to be a middle ground. There really needs to be a nice middle ground of where you have the right level of hype, but you're not overdoing it to the point of where fans aren't excited anymore. Now, the next topic that Peter suggested was, since you play on PC and Xbox, what is better and why? What are the pros and cons of playing on each system? This is an excellent question / topic, so I really appreciate this. The thing is, with playing on a PC, you have a lot of options. As far as different indie games go, you can, you know, play, you have a lot more room for activities, honestly. But whenever it comes to just the maneuverability, the way in which the game performs, you need to have very specific setups and all that kind of thing. So it can be to your advantage to get a PC, and PC gaming is absolutely incredible. But you need to have the right system settings. You need to have the right graphics card. You need to have all the right things in place before you can even think about it. Like, I am delaying playing Overwatch just because of a graphics card and a storage card that I need to get in order to play it. So I could play it now, but it would be like lag city. Like, it would just be just terrible. Now, the thing I have with Xbox, it's actually a bit of a conundrum, because sometimes when you get a game on Xbox, you have the rarity but slight issue of the game completely freezing, which I don't know why. Now, this happened with me when I was playing Gears of War Ultimate Edition, or Unlimited Edition. It's Unlimited Edition, sorry, brain freeze. And it froze mid-game when I was recording, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? I think I actually left some of the footage in where it actually froze in one of the gameplays I did. But with some of the games on Xbox, you don't get as much of I don't want to sound like a complete bitch, but you don't get as many choices that are actually good games. Like, a lot of the AAA titles like Resident Evil, you know, Red Dead Redemption, you know, a lot of those games, they're really good, and they're really, like, they're properly hyped up on Xbox and everything like that. But when it comes to, like, lesser known games, and when it comes to games that you wouldn't have necessarily heard of, like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, perfect example. That was originally a PC game. They just put it on Xbox. So whenever you're talking about stuff like that, if it's things that are mainly for PC, that's one thing. But stuff that transfers over to Xbox and from PC, it's not as easily translatable, if that makes sense. Because whenever you have a PC game that's strictly for PC, I don't know how it's gonna work if it goes on Xbox. Like, that's the thing. Like, the one game that I really feel like did very well going from PC to Xbox was Emily Wants to Play. Emily Wants to Play is a fantastic game. It's very scary. It's one of the first games that really made me jump scare. Like, it really is, because I don't normally jump scare at a lot of horror games. It just really doesn't happen that much. But with this game, with Emily Wants to Play, that scared the ever-living crap out of me. Listen, I don't like when dolls follow me, okay? It's not nice, alright? Just don't follow me, and we'll both be fine. We'll be okay. We'll be friends. So when comparing, you know, PC and Xbox, would I say that Xbox is better to a certain extent? I would, because the smoothness and the way that it is performance-wise, I would say that's definitely better. But PC has just the outright amazing capabilities depending on the things that you have placed in your system. It's all based on the computer that you have, honestly. But each Xbox comes already preset with everything that you need to be able to have amazing gameplay. In order to have amazing gameplay on your PC, you need to build a PC that is an absolute beast. Like, there is no there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you want to be able to game like a pro and do things that you need to do in order to have the high graphics quality, do all that kind of thing, you need to have a very well built computer. So in that sense, that's a bit of a con because you're shelling out a lot of money, at least like $2,000 for a decent computer at the most. So in no means I'm saying don't get a PC and stick to Xbox, but what I am saying is that do your research before you buy the console or before you buy the computer, because either way you're shelling out a lot of money. Like I feel like it's more expensive to build a computer than it is to get an Xbox. And I believe the Xbox I got was on sale, Xbox One, for like a little over $200. I want to say, don't quote me on that because it was on sale at the time. It came with Ori and the Blind Forest and Gears of War Unlimited Edition. So I was getting a steal, basically. I was really getting a steal with that. I got it at Walmart. Holla at Walmart. But when it comes down to it, if you want to just play console games and not have as much of an issue with bugs, with with like indie games just not working, because that's become an issue of mine lately, is just indie games will not work. They will not work. It's frustrating me so much. They're either like lag city, or they warned me beforehand that this may contain viruses. So that's a thing. But at the end of the day, if you want to go for PC, you better be ready to spend a lot of dough on your PC, because you're not getting away with less than $1,400 unless you can find a deal like I did with a guy who makes custom computers and get it for $400. So just be very, very wary of what you do purchase. Like I said, do your research. And the next topic that Peter has here is, what's your opinion when companies add monetization to a game after its launch? The loot boxes in-game being overused. I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say add monetization to a game after it's launched. Do you mean like the gambling issue that's going on with games, where loot boxes are being kind of used as a gambling device in a sense? I'm not sure what you mean by adding monetization to that, but whenever I think of adding monetization, I'm thinking of basically like them adding DLCs that cost more than the game, basically. Whenever the Evil Within came out with their DLCs, they were very well priced. I think what was it, both of the assignment and the consequence, each one was like $3.99 each, and then they had the executioner, which was $2.99, which it was a steal, basically. So whenever I think of monetization in game, that's what I think of. But the loot boxes in games, I don't see. It's really tricky, because a lot of people have come out saying that, oh, it's gambling, you're teaching your children to gamble. It's like, I'm not gonna have my kid playing Gears of War anytime soon. I want them to at least understand the concept of the game, not just go in blind and be like, okay, where's the loot box? So the next topic that Peter has here is, in the time you have been gaming, how have video games changed apart from graphics, obviously? Do you think they have become easier and dumbed down? In no way do I think they've become easier and dumbed down. If you're talking about like an indie developer who, is doing like game jam and he has like a couple of days to build a game, then yeah, those games are pretty easy. But whenever it comes down to it, I feel like the plot line has become more intense, and it's changed in a sense of where it's more immersive. I feel like if the game is easy and you have all the answers in front of you, the immersion is going to be the big deal at the end of the day. Because I started playing video games when I was like 10 years old, man. And I remember, feeling so immersed in this universe of zombies and, the T-virus and all that kind of thing. So, and Zelda, oh my god, I completely forgot about that game, and Scooby-Doo and all that kind of thing. I remember sitting in my room, playing Resident Evil 4 when I was like, 13 years old or something, and it was one of the best experiences I ever had. Not only was it a distraction from high school and all that kind of thing, but it was one of the things that made me fall in love with the story. And it made me fall in love with the concept that you can build any kind of world that you want. And now even more so with the VR technology, that's one of the biggest changes that's come to gaming, and one of the most versatile changes, I believe, because you're not only having to adapt to your real world, but you have to adapt to this whole, artificial intelligence that you're being immersed into. And I feel like that's one of the coolest things ever. So I don't think it's dumbed down. If anything, I feel like it's gained this new level of intellectual stability that has allowed us to immerse ourselves in this completely new world that we have to figure out and finagle our way through. So no, it's a really smart world, actually. Just look at the open worlds that you get with Fallout 4, with Fallout 76. Got some issues with Fallout 76, but but overall, like, that's a very immersive world. Look at Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. You have so much that goes into just making an open world. Some other things that have really changed too are the voice acting. The voice acting has become so incredibly immersive that before, like you guys saw in my playthrough of Blood Rain 2, like, it would be so simplistic, and somebody were to be like, oh, what do we do? Oh, it's over there. Yeah, that thing. Let's go get that right now. As opposed to, like, in-depth conversations that you now have in video games. It's outstanding. So that's another major change that has come to the gaming industry, is the voice acting and the way that the story is being told and perceived and executed. It's really fascinating. And it's not just the voice acting now, it's all like the little things that you get whenever you buy a game. You get 3D models, you get different archives, different treats, I like to call them, where you can go into your game and you can get costumes, you can go back and you can see all of your achievements and everything like that. Back in like the early 2000s, that really wasn't much of a thing as it is now. You can't really you couldn't really see your achievements back then on the GameCube, because it wasn't really it wasn't hooked up to the internet, and the internet was still a very new-ish kind of thing. It was always, it was around for a hot minute, but the internet, at least for me, was something that was new and just this exciting thing. Like, I remember going on AOL and being like, oh my god, this is fantastic. That sounded kind of like the Babadook. Don't ask me how I know how the Babadook sounds. He sounds kind of gruff and mysterious. But those were all the questions and all the topics that you guys want me to go into. But yeah, keep them coming, and keep recommending topics and everything for me to talk about, because it's really interesting to get to dive into your guys' mindset and see what you guys perceive of gaming, how you guys react to what I do. It's really fascinating to see your guys' perception of it. Although I do want to say something in response to the Blood Rain comments that I made earlier about, it being very simplistic in dialogue. Blood Rain was really the first of its kind in vampire horror games, if you will. You have the Vampire Masquerade and all that kind of thing. Like, you have that game, but Blood Rain is really one of a kind, and I honestly wish they would redo it. Like, besides Silent Hill, I want to get a Blood Rain remake. Like, who's with me on this? Seriously, those of you who have loved Blood Rain, just as long as I have, probably even longer, who wants to see the first and second game remade? Because the third game, excuse my language, complete bullshit. I'm sorry, but that third game was just a sad excuse for making a third game. I mean, if you want to make a third game, do it right, spend the time on it, and don't make it like a side-scrolling horror mission game. It wasn't even a horror mission game. So yeah, we need a Blood Rain remake immediately. We do. But yeah, if you guys like this podcast and you want to see more of it, be sure to hit the like, and let me know that you like this and you like what I do. Please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below, because I make videos every weekday and a podcast every Saturday. Stay casually nerdy, you guys, and I will talk to you all in Monday's video. Peace.